So, thank you everybody for joining us for an hour. We're going to take an hour to dive into uh, the the Thrive program, right? So you can see there that we've got the uppercase T, the capital letters THRIVE. Um, T is about trauma. H is about healing. R is about resilience. I is about identity. V is about a vision for the future. And E is empowering others. So before we get into those six different categories, I'm just going to give you a very swift overview of Thrive. So here we go. If I can do that, does it do that? Okay. So who's the Thrive framework for? Well, when I started creating it, started distilling what I'd learned last year, I thought it was going to be for basically for adoptees and adoptive parents. Since then, I've been showing it to different people, and we're broadening the audience out. Right, so it's for birth parents too, and it's for adoption professionals. So I'm doing a lot of webinars, a lot of Thrive courses, delivering those for adoption agencies and adoption organizations. So if you know somebody that's looking for a speaker and you like the look of what the Thrive uh, course has to offer, then please do recommend this program and pass on my contact details to people that you know. That's my aim, is to bring this Thrive program out across the world. Already working here in the UK and the US to bring it out. That's why I'm doing the webinar today, to help you understand more about this framework, Thrive, and also so that if you know other people, adoption agency executive directors, people like that, who are into this stuff in terms of post-adoption support or pre-adoption training as well. So the Thrive framework is for everybody within the adoption constellation. What makes it unique? Well, that it is the only framework for thriving that there is out there. I have seen an adoptee consciousness model. That's the only model that I've seen that is somewhat similar. I found it quite complicated and difficult to understand. So what I'm trying to do is make the Thrive framework really, really easy. It's simple, right? It's simple, but it's not simplistic. And I built this. I built this framework based on the lived experience of 500 people across the adoption constellation, and what's worked for them, and what's not worked for them. Okay, so it's basically everything that I've learned and continue to learn from the conversations I have before the podcast, for the interviews for the podcast themselves, uh, it all put into this six section framework. So what's it all about? It's about healing. It's about healing trauma. Now, some people don't like the word healing. So it's also about growing. So it's about growing our personal capacity. So when I think about that, I think about, especially for about adoptive parents, right? Growing their growing their capacity to not take their kids' trauma personally, for example. And it's healing, growing, and it's about thriving. The the idea for a Thrive framework actually came before the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So that idea came about 4.5 years ago. Been doing the podcast 4 years now, 540 odd episodes, 117,000 downloads. So here we go. So what's in the framework? Well, it's about knowledge. So when we know better, we do better. It's about skills, so developing skills, and it's about strategies, the how tos and how not tos. Today we're going to be focusing really on the knowledge bit, because of the size of the group and the fact that um, it's a 1 hour introduction into what is a 6 hour or a 9 hour 9 hour training. I do an hour or an hour and a half on each of the 6 parts of the Thrive program. So T is for trauma, right? So what I'm getting at here is I'm looking at the different trauma that different members of the adoption constellation will have gone through, and I'm showing that this trauma impacts us, right? It takes a bite out of this outer layer, of this circle, right? So we think about grief at the top. So the loss of a dream of a biological family, for example, right? The if we're going on here, going opposite way, anti-clockwise, like I think about miscarriages and friends of ours that have had miscarriages. It's a terrible, terrible thing. It cuts us deep. Right? At the bottom, we've got secondary trauma, right? So we may be adoptive parents and we are suffering secondary trauma. Our kids maybe have some relinquishment trauma, this thing here, this primal wound thing, but we're suffering secondary trauma. So their trauma is impacting us. And then the last one here, the primal wound, the relinquishment trauma, this idea, this theory that Nancy Verrier came up with 32 years ago. The primal wound book was published, right? So, but if you look at this, circle now, this graphic that I'm doing, what I'm actually suggesting is that it impacts it impacts us. It impacts part of us. Perhaps we could say our psychological and emotional selves, right? But what I'm saying, what I'm suggesting, and we're going to dive into this today, is that it the essence of who we truly are, right? Our essence, what some people might call spirit, or some people might call consciousness, or some people might call the uppercase S self. So you see that U's got a capital letter, an uppercase S self. I'm saying that there is some damage to our outer layers, but our essence is untouched by the trauma, and I'm just putting that out there for you to consider, and I am by no means am I denying the trauma here. And if somebody had, I was talking to somebody that had just had a miscarriage, there's no way that I would say, well, there is an essence of you that is untraumatized. There's no way that I would say that, because it would be heartless and soulless to do so. But I want to get into that in a minute. So, question for you, a question for you to mull over. How do you feel about trauma? How do you feel about trauma? So, is it something that scares you? I know my trauma has scared me. I know my anger has scared me, and it continues to scare me a little bit less than it used to do. But is it something that you kind of want to push away, right? So a lot of oftentimes with trauma, we're trying to push it away, we're trying to repress it, we're trying to suppress it, we're trying to numb out. So you hear a lot of statistics about addiction within the adoptee community, and it's because our feelings feel overwhelming, and we're trying to get rid of them, right? So how do you feel about trauma? How do you feel about if you're an adoption professional, how do you feel about your clients' trauma? If you are an adoptive parent, how do you feel about your kids' trauma? Right? I'm going to suggest a very different way of looking, a different perspective on trauma. So, what if our trauma was a gift? Now, it's a very counter-cultural way of looking at this, but it's a really helpful way of looking at this. When it is for me, I'm suggesting that you maybe just try that, emphasize that idea, emphasize. What if our trauma was a gift? What if our trauma was a gift? What does it give us? Right? What does it give us? Uh, in terms of our relationship with others, it gives us empathy for them. It gives us empathy. We can relate to how they feel. We can relate to their trauma, and that relating to them, that empathy, that sympathy, that understanding, that clarity, that shared experience, that's priceless because it's the foundation of our communication with them. It's a it's our it's a foundation. It helps us relate to them. We can share stories from our stuff that can help them see their their stuff. So from a relationship standpoint, I think it's like gold dust. Right? We can relate to somebody else. It means that we're not going to be, hopefully we can be sensitive to their needs. We can be sensitive to their trauma. And the foundation of our communication, the foundation of our relationship. But what about ourselves? What if our trauma was a gift to us, right? Because it if I hadn't been through my stuff, I wouldn't have discovered who I truly am underneath that trauma. Okay. That is a gift. So it's not only a gift to me and my relationships with other people, but it's a gift to me. It's like a rumble strip, right? So we have rumble strips on the side of the motorways here in the UK, what you guys would call the freeways. So the rumble strip show as if we are drifting at the if drifting at the wheel, if our car drifts into the wrong lane, a rumble strip is there to remind us, to put us back on course. It's there to point us back in the right direction. And trauma is like that. It allows us, it points us back to the right direction, and we discover the essence of who we truly are, and the wholeness underneath that trauma. Uh, so today we're going to do we're going to use a lot of metaphors, right? So this is a metaphor to explain a metaphor. This is the invisible man. So metaphors make the invisible visible, right? They make the invisible visible, and it allows us to grasp them, right? So we use that word grasp to as a way to grasp a glass of water or to grasp an idea. It takes what is abstract and makes it concrete, right? It takes something that we can't see and turns it into something that we can see, and then we can we can hold this up to the light, and we kind of know what one another's talking about. So the primal wound is is a metaphor, and so it allows us to take things that aren't things and make them things. Now that has some benefits, as I just explained to you. We can take it allows us something we've got something to talk about. We've got something that our minds can grasp. We've got something that your mind can grasp in the conversation, right? We're not just talking about willy-nilly airy-fairy things, right? They do have a they do have a downside, so it cuts both ways. Metaphors cut both ways because they thingify things, right? So they turn abstract into concrete. They make things out of things. They make things where there was no thing there before, and that can make the transitory, that it can make stuff that changes over time. It can make it more and more concrete, right? So there's this thing in psychology called confirmation bias, right? So it's the idea that once we believe something, we what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. So once we think about something, once we believe something, then we can that idea can snowball, right? So I'm using another metaphor here, right? The idea can snowball, and it can become a bigger deal than it really is, right? And it takes a life on it of its own, and we say, I didn't know that that was a thing. So those things can become diagnoses, and once we've got a diagnosis, there's a relief at a diagnosis, but then that can keep us stuck in a rut where we believe more and more about these things. We're not able to hold the idea as lightly. It becomes a thing. So I would say metaphors cut both ways. On one hand, they make it easier for us to communicate. On another hand, it makes it easier for us to get stuck in a rut. So we've got to be aware of that, right? When we're stuck in a rut. So this is a quote from I think it's a Swiss psychotherapist, Carl Jung. And until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So 98% of what we think, feel, and do is unconscious. We're not aware of the cause of our behavior, right? So often we think about adoptees being like myself, adopted at just over 4 weeks old. I have no memory. I have no conscious memory. I have no conscious memory of the loss of my birth mother. I have no conscious memory of meeting my mum and dad for the first time. It is unconscious. It is pre-verbal. So we can't remember it, and we don't have words for it. And then we have these big feelings that come off the back of that, and we can't attribute them to a source. We don't know what caused the we don't know what caused the thought or the feeling or the behavior, because we can't remember it. We don't have words for it. We're just acting now, right? And what today what we're looking at is making things more conscious. We're talking about making what is unconscious conscious. Uh, Now, the adoptees talk about this in terms of coming out of the fog, right? So we come out of the fog is when what the trauma that was unconscious becomes conscious. Adoptive parents talk about the same thing. So they have, if depending on when they adopted and the the quality of the pre-adoption training that they had, they may not have been learned about trauma. They may not have been taught about trauma, or they may have been taught about trauma, but they may have not believed that it was actually going to impact them and their child. And there is a point at which they, adopted parents, come out of the fog too. They become conscious of their child's trauma. So let's dive into this. Right? Let's dive into it. We're going to look at this. I'm going to look at this from an adoptee's perspective, right? So this woman here uh, is in the fog. So she can't see clearly. She's bumping into things. She's tripping over things. She she is unaware of the trauma bit that she can't remember, and she's confused, and her parents are confused as well because they're not yet conscious of her trauma, not fully conscious of their trauma. Now, I came out of the. It's common, right? This is the big thing. Many adoptees don't come out of the fog until their 40s. It's amazing that their 40s, right? So I came out of the fog around at the age of 40, around the time when I found out that this teddy bear was from my birth mother, and that brought up some feelings towards my birth mother that I never and some thoughts about my birth mother. Now I hadn't thought about my birth mother. Lots of adoptees do. The words that came out of my mouth were, and there were some swear words as well, but I won't go into them. Right? She didn't love me enough to keep me. What's the teddy bear? The teddy bear is an effing consolation prize from a from her because she didn't love me enough to keep me. Right? So I had I hadn't had those thoughts about my birth mother before. I hadn't had those feelings towards my birth mother. I hadn't experienced that kind of volcano of feelings that went off, right? As soon as those words came out of my mouth, the lady that I was talking to, she said, "Well, I'm a mum, Simon, and I don't think that it would have been quite like that." And at that point, the volcano stopped erupting, right? So there was perhaps a little bit of smoke coming out of the top of the crater, but that that questioning of my um, or that statement in terms of my birth mother's thoughts uh, was was very short lived for me, and yet incredibly powerfully painful. And then 10 years later, after that, I found I got my adoption file, and it became clear to me that the teddy bear was not an effing consolation prize. It was a symbol of my birth mother's love for me, and that was one of the most healing moments that I've ever had in my 18 years exploring this stuff, because the tears came running down my face, and I felt as I read this letter from Pat to my to the social worker. I felt her pain. I felt her desperation. The letter was all about the teddy bear, getting the teddy bear to me, right? I felt her desperation. I felt her love for me, and and without a doubt, right? And I actually felt connected with her, despite the fact that she'd actually died years before me reading the letter. So, coming out of the fog is a uh, it is an emotional experience. So I'm playing with this metaphor here, right? We come out of the fog. So what happens when we come out of the fog? What do we see next, right? We see the storm clouds of our trauma.
Mm.
There's the noise of the thunder. There's the cracks of the lightning. There's the dark, ominous storm clouds. There's all the rain coming down, all the rain coming down from those storm clouds, right? And the reason it's a perfect metaphor is because this is a very emotional time. These are overwhelming emotions, and it kind of was for me as the tears through flooded down my face, uh, and those tears actually did me a huge favor, right? So trauma is a gift. Trauma is a gift because trauma is a gift because the tears washed away that short-lived belief that my birth mother didn't love me enough to keep me. And they took me to a place where I actually felt at one with her. I felt it wasn't a spiritual, it wasn't a physical connection because she died, but it was a spiritual connection. It was on every level. I felt at one with her. So the the reunion that couldn't happen in the real world because she died happened in my experience when I saw that I was connected with her, and I saw the, I saw the error of my ways, right? I saw the error of the belief that she didn't love me enough to keep me, a very short-lived belief, but I saw that belief as totally wrong. So coming out of the fog is an emotional moment, and the key thing I want to share is that lots of adoptees don't do this until they're in their 40s, which is mind-boggling, really. You've got those 40 years of being in the fog, not being sure, stumbling around. You don't know what's happening. Your parents don't know what's happening. Nobody knows what's happening. But you know, we're creating um, yeah, we're confused or we're angry. We're scared of rejection. We believe that there's something wrong with us, and all this stuff is going on. We have no clue of what's going on, right? So everybody's confused. This is about bringing clarity. So we come out of the fog. We can see the trauma. We can see the storm cloud of the trauma, right, for the first time. And then, uh, and then if we're really lucky, right, we see a blue. Let me just go back. We see a blue cloud. We see a blue cloud in the darkness, and we're drawn we're drawn to that. Like we're magically drawn to it, like a leap in our level of consciousness. It's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. At the end of it, it goes up the um, the the Charlie goes up the great glass elevator, right? So it's a leap in our consciousness as we realize that we are one. We are whole. We are connected. We are one being, and our spirit soars. Probably another way of looking at it, right? we're drawn and we see this blue square in the darkness of the cloud. And as we get close to it, we realize that it's actually a chimney, and the chimney sucks us up like we were Santa Claus after we delivered the presents, right? Sucks us and we come out of the top of the storm clouds, A- and then everything's bright and blue and clear. And then if we're if we're really lucky, we realize that we are that sky. We are that sky. We are the space for the fog. We are the space for the trauma. The trauma is occurring within us, right? But we're the sky. We we are the sky. We are open. We are the space in which all our thoughts and all our feelings exist. It's the container. It's the container for our trauma. It's the container for our feelings terror, of insecurity, of of shame, of low self-esteem, or a lack of confidence, or of anxiety or depression. We are none of those things. We are the sky, the holding the space in which all those all that nastiness happens. The biggest learning that I've had from interviewing over 500 people is that the this essential this essential nature of who we are as 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 the sky, right? As awareness, as consciousness, as the space in which our thoughts and feelings occur. That is the biggest driver of our healing, right? We are not our psychology. We are not we are not our psychology. We are not our trauma. This frees the trauma bound identity, right? So you can imagine um, an escapologist, a Harry Houdini, in this trauma bound identity with all these padlocks and all these chains, compared to this huge freedom of of the openness of the sky that we truly are. I'm not a Buddhist, but it's a Buddhist metaphor. But I'm applying those those learnings to the adoption perspective. So what I'm saying here in another metaphor is that trauma hides us, it doesn't harm us. Yeah? Trauma hides us, it doesn't harm us. The the fog hid the sky. The storm clouds hid the sky. We are the sky, not the trauma of the storm clouds or the confusion of the fog. So think of the kids' game, right? Rock, paper, scissors, right? I'm saying that our essential self, our consciousness or awareness, who we truly are, our uppercase S self, that, that's represented by the rock in the metaphor. Okay. And Nancy Verrier's Nancy Verrier would have it that who we are is cut. She talks about a primal wound, right? So if we take a pair of scissors with rock, paper, scissors, the the scissors can't cut the rock. They're not strong enough. They're not sharp enough. And in the kid's game, right? In the kid's game, rock beats scissors. Yeah. Nobody's denying the trauma here. Nobody, we're not denying the trauma here. just saying that the trauma, a better metaphor for the trauma rather than the scissors, is the paper. Right, so the paper in the kid's game, the paper wraps the rock, and the paper um, until we unfold the paper, the paper obscures, it hides, it conceals the rock. The rock, remember, is who we truly are. So what we're doing here is we're separating who we truly are, the rock, from the paper that hides us. So if we look at that paper, this piece of paper that you can see on the slides there, it's got lots of musical notes. But the trauma paper, it has all those thoughts and feelings on it that represent our trauma, whatever that trauma is. Obviously, we're talking a lot about the adoptee trauma, but thinking about the adoptive parent trauma, about the grief, about the miscarriage, childhood trauma that they've been through. Think about adoption. Think about generational trauma. So stuff that they've inherited from their predecessors. So the African American people that were slaves. The Brits and the Americans. We conspired to do this slave trade, and we treated these people from Africa so inhumanely. Think about the generational trauma of the Jewish people who've been persecuted. Think of other groups that have been persecuted. All these different trauma, and the paper that covers the paper that covers the rock is covered in trauma, whether it's the feelings, it's whether the thought that I'm not good enough, the worry about the future, the fear of rejection, the belief that we're not good enough, right? So what was wrong with me? Um, I couldn't have my own biological kids. Yeah. And I'm thinking about a T-shirt I once saw on a TV program that said, "My sperm doesn't count." Right? That impact on one's identity, whether to do with infertility, the miscarriages we mentioned, right? So, but what we're saying here is that the message of hope, it's about seeing that trauma hides us. It doesn't harm us. It doesn't. We are not our trauma. It doesn't define us. It's a non-identifying thing. Right? So Nancy Verrier's talking about a primal wound, right? So this cut that's taken out of us. I think that this is more of like a trauma paradox, so that uh, trauma takes a cut out of us, whatever that trauma is. Whether one of my mentors was abused in every way possible including sexually, by her father. And I think if somebody can get through that, they can get through anything. So what is it that helped her get through that? It was seeing her undamaged self underneath underneath the trauma. So the trauma paradox is saying that on one level, the outside level of this circle, on one level we're wounded, and at a deeper level, but at a deeper level, who we truly are is untouched. Right. So this is, I'm using different metaphors, different ways to say the same thing. I'm not denying trauma. I'm just saying that it hides us rather than hurting the essence of who we truly are. So the trauma paradox seems uh, more true to me after looking at this 18 years and after interviewing so many people about thriving for the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Um, so that's trauma. Now we're into the H of the Thrive program, and it's about our wholeness, right? Healing is about wholeness. Healing is about wholeness.
Yes.
Question for you. Is time the greatest healer? A lot of people say that. If there's no change over that time, there's no healing. It's not the time. It's the change over that time, the change that happens in that time, right? So, how long does it take? How long does it take a, an apple to fall from the tree? Well, it takes as long as it takes for the apple to grow, but it falls in an instant. It's the same. It's the same thing with healing and time. It takes time for the healing to happen, but it always happens in an instant. It's about like I talk about hanging out at the bus stop um, for insights. The the bus, if it's a British bus, it's probably going to be late, right? It's not running to the timetable. You might be waiting forever, and then two come along. So you're waiting forever, but then it always takes 20 seconds for it to do that last 20 yards when it's come around the corner. So is time the greatest healer? No. No change, no healing. No change, no healing. So what is the greatest healer? What is the greatest healer? Insights. So these can be huge Charlton Heston like insights, like the one that I was talking about earlier on, reading that letter from my birth mother and the tears cascading down my face and me feeling her. I'm getting goosebumps, right? Me feeling her love for me, getting tingles all over. Me feeling her love for me, for love with me. Me realizing, seeing the world with real eyes, having an insight. So insights can be huge or they can be small and everywhere in between. And for me, like if I'm in the healing and thriving business, what I'm trying to do is create space for healing insights. That's what I'm trying to do today. That's what I try to do with the Thrive program. That's what I do. I catalyze insights. When I'm doing the podcast, I'm interviewing the guests about their insights. What did they see differently? What was their sight from within? Not from without, right? Not from without, from within. There's no such thing as a second-hand insight. We have to have them for ourselves. I'm trying to create space for insight, space and time and openness, right? So let's have a look at the healing process. It starts with a glimpse, I think. So I'm trying to point you to your intactness. I don't know if intactness is a word, right? Intact. You are intact. We are all intact underneath our trauma. Our trauma has hidden us. It hasn't harmed us, in my opinion. My opinion doesn't matter. It's about it's not about what I say, it's about what you hear. Right? It's not about what I say, it's about what you hear. It's not about what I point you to, it's about what you see. I'm trying to give you today a glimpse of your intactness. You are not your trauma. You are intact underneath your trauma, right? So that's the first little take of it, yeah, that you glimpse it. then you might see your wholeness, right? See this guy's eyes of on out on stalks, right? This is an eye-popping moment. If you uh, healing is about wholeness, and when we see we are whole, we don't need anybody else or anything to complete us. We are whole. We are complete. We are sufficient. I talk about the ache of inadequacy, feeling that we're not enough. So we're not we're not a good enough mum. We're not a good enough dad. We're not a good enough son. We're not good enough at our career. We're not good enough. Existential wrongness, right?
Hey, Simon,
Existential wrongness.
Simon,
Hello.
we can't see your screen, you know. We can't see what you're showing us, just so you know.
When you watch the impact, when you watch it, can you see it now?
Yay. Yep,
Yeah,
we can see everything on your
we can see it.
screen. You might want to maybe enlarge it so we don't have to see your desktop, but yeah, we can see it.
You see it now?
That is perfect. Way
Okay.
better.
Everybody want to. Everyone wants me to take it back a bit. Let's go back. Let's go back. Right.
We were trying to tell you in the chat, but I guess you weren't.
Okay. I can't.
But
I can't see it right. So that's the trauma bit, right? Where these things are cutting in. I've gone a bit red with embarrassment, but I'm also laughing, right? So this is the trauma bit where the trauma cuts in, but our essential whole is untouched. Um, Asked about how do you feel about the trauma? Trauma is a gift, metaphors. Carl Jung, in the fog, in the storm, in the cloud, in the sky. Paper rock scissors, trauma paradox, whole, time the greatest healer, insights heal, the healing process. So here we are, glimpsing our intactness. When you get the recording, you'll get the slides too. So, um, seeing my wholeness, I don't need anyone or anything to complete me. Right, the ache of inadequacy, the relief of sufficiency, and the 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 bliss of infinity. That's the cloud bit, right? The bliss of infinity. The next stage in the healing process is believing I'm whole. So we've we've seen it with our eyes, and then we're believing it. We're believing it in our heads, believing in our wholeness. I am whole. Next bit is we're feeling whole. So this isn't an abstract concept anymore or a belief. It's a deeply embedded feeling. So I'm trying to give you a glimpse and a see of this, but this healing process goes on. I think it goes on and deepens for forever. Feeling whole in that moment, even reliving that moment of this letter from my birth mum that I keep going on about. It is a deep feeling of wholeness there, um, and then getting it in our bones. So head, eyes, head, heart, bones, getting it in our bones. I know deep down that I'm whole. I sometimes feel wounded, but I know deep down that I'm whole. So how come this? Why can I say that we are whole? Right? Who else? Well, yeah. Why can I say that? Because not a lot of people are saying it. Um, this guy is saying it. So this guy is a guy called Dr. Richard Schwartz. He's the founder of something called internal family systems. It's like a therapy modality, I think is the jargon. And he talks about finding our our true self, finding your true self. And when I say self, usually we talk about the uppercase S self. So not the lowercase s self, the ego or the separate self, the uppercase S self, who we truly are, our essence, the stuff that's untouched by our trauma. Um, so what this is my metaphor that sums up that sums up what Dick Schwartz is talking about, right? So this is the Trivial Pursuits game thing, right? So we get the cheeses, the six cheeses, right? So the trauma is in our parts, but it's not in the uppercase S self. Yeah, you see, you got the capital S for self. Right? Trauma in the parts. So the part of me that is 4 weeks old and wondering where his mum's gone and why this new stranger is holding him who smells different to my mum, right? That's the traumas in the past, or the like the 10-year-old me that was uh, told I was a worthless piece of effing s by a patrol leader in a scout camp who bullied me incessantly, right? So the traumas in our parts, right? It's locked in on the parts, but it's not in the uppercase S self. So what we're doing here is we're shifting our focus from the trauma that's in our parts to the uppercase S self. So it's not just me saying this uppercase, this unwoundable. So I'm saying our essence is unwounded because it's unwoundable. Richard Schwartz would say, well, the trauma is in the parts and not in the self. So we're separating the trauma that we feel from the essence of who we truly are. Okay, and that's the wholeness thing. Um, Resilience. So the R of the Thrive model is about resilience. It's about bouncing back. It's about post-traumatic growth. Everybody's obsessed with post-traumatic stress disorder. They don't look at post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is actually we bounce back higher than we were before. So worth taking a look at post-traumatic growth. Um, Resilience. So the common belief, I think, is that resilience is strengthened. Like this woman has gone to the gym and she has become stronger physically. Resilience is like a muscle that's strengthened. Well, it's not. It's something that's seen. It's something that's recognized. It's an insight. It was one of the things I was talking about earlier. What helps us heal is insight, seeing this stuff. It's seen, it's appreciated. We look back on something that was really hard at the time, and we look back on it and we think, how on earth did I get through that? Well, what got us through was our resilience. Our resilience that we had underappreciated. We hadn't recognized it in ourselves. Just 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna zip along. So this is a little bit of a question for you to consider. How do you see yourself? So I think the common belief is that this is some Japanese porcelain that has a dish that's been broken, and it's been glued together with this gold stuff, right? And so that's the traditional way that most of us see ourselves. We've been through some tough stuff. Um, it has it is broken us, and somehow we've managed to figure and pull ourselves back together again, right? Another way is think about an orange that's fallen off the table. So on the outside it looks okay, but on the inside it's bruised. Similar kind of idea to this to this bowl. What I'm saying is that we're born, we bounce back higher because we're born to bounce. So we're not broken, as in this Japanese ceramicist. We're not bruised on the inside, which would be the kind of the orange metaphor. We're born to bounce. We're born to bounce back. So, however high the tower is, I was talking to somebody yesterday who did an aerial. No, it's my sister. One of her friends did an aerial runway, like one of those zip wire things, from a 66 story in Dubai, right? So if you imagine throwing a rubber ball out of a 66 story window, it's just going to bounce. Doesn't matter how high it is. It's gonna bounce, and that's because we're um, we have this resilience that we haven't appreciated. And as Winnie the Pooh says, um, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Right? Stronger than you seem. Right? Stronger than you seem to yourself. More resilient than you seem to yourself. The I of Thrive is about identity. And this, with so many of us believing that we're not good enough, that we're trash, that we're rubbish, the Thriving Adoptees logo is a direct counter to that. So we can talk about, it seems to me that like trauma's a toxic cocktail, but we're the glass, not its contents. Right? So I'm separating here who we are from the trauma we feel. We are not our trauma. We are not a trauma-bound identity. Looking at so this is a diamond mine, right? And to mine those diamonds, we've had to they've had to dig deep and go down and get down through all the different layers of trauma, our secondary trauma, our life experiential trauma, early childhood trauma, relinquishment trauma. I'm missing an A there, right? Generational trauma, and underneath all that lot is the diamond of the thriving adoptees, right? Or the diamond of all of us. It's not just adoptees that are diamonds. We're every single one of us. So we've got to dig deep down through these layers of trauma, and as we excavate these different layers, we come to the truth of who we are. So the conversations on the Thriving Adoptees podcast are deep, and they're intentionally deep. Elmarie, who is joined us on the joining us today on the webinar, just released an episode with her. Incredibly deep, right? A deep appreciation of our wholeness. We have to go deep to find the essence of who we truly are. Like these guys have to dig deep to get to the diamonds. And what do we find in that So this is we're back to Richard Schwartz here in his uppercase S self, right? His genius for me is characterizing the diamond, characterizing the uppercase S self in terms of, largely here in terms of feelings here, right? Calm, clear, seeing clearly now the trauma's gone, right? Curious, creative, confident, connected, compassionate. Connected is the biggest one for me. Connected. Our connection. Trauma is a wall that separates us. And if we step out of the way of that wall, or we knock that wall down, we see that that wall is one. What that wall is made of. It's not made of us. Then we reconnect. and we create a vision for the future, right? So the um, history explains the present, but it doesn't need to dictate the future, right? The past is a place of reference, not a place of residence. We're moving forward here. Um, as I said it, yeah. Past. This is another, not Richard Schwartz, but Richard Wilkins. And a big thing, right? What we focus on gets bigger. So many of us are trying to get our trauma recognized. We're spending all our time focusing on our trauma, not focusing on our healing or thriving. And the last E of thrive is about empowerment. So this runner is passing the baton on, right? So we're creating. People talk about leaders don't create more, don't create followers; they create more leaders. And as I mentioned earlier on, right? So if we're empowering others, it's not about what we say; it's about what they hear. It's not about what we point out; it's what they see. It's not what we tell them; it's what they believe. So this is back to this ownership and them having the insights for themselves. And then this another one for Richard Wilkins. Encouragement does for people what helium does for balloons, right? It lifts us, right? So instead of see a lot of people throwing sandbags into each other's uh, uh, baskets, hot air balloon baskets, keeping us down. This is about helium that moves us up. And that, believe it or not, is Gandhi. Be the change that you want to see in the world, right? So if we're going to empower others, we have to be we have to model what we want. We have to be we have to be a role model because others, especially our kids, are much more likely to do what we do rather than to do what we tell them to do. And I think that might be it. It is. So, what's that? 3 minutes past 6. 3 minutes past 6. So I think we'll bring it. I'll just have a look at the chat. So thank you. Yeah, it is recorded. Da, da, da. Thanks for everybody telling me that I couldn't see the screen. Lovely comment there. Yeah, Tracy, that's fantastic. I am whole. Yeah. Now working on feeling and getting it in every cell. Brilliant. Enrich my soul. Cool. Anybody want to come on and ask a question, or else we'll close it up? If you want to unmute yourself, anybody? Anybody want to share? Want to share anything? We'll leave it. It's okay.
I just want to say thank you for sharing your slides, but all of the information. It's just really valuable to hear it. I mean, sometimes you know things but you've taken a close look, and it was really lovely to go on this journey hand in hand, as it were. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jay. You're welcome. And sorry for the mess up with the slides.
Just shows you're human, Simon. That's all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was talking to my the somatic experience lady that I see. We talked about whole and human, and yeah, it's human. Thanks, Jay. Hopefully I was kind of making some sense with my hand movements.
You were making sense without the slides. Don't worry.
Cool. Thanks, Jay, and thank you everybody. We'll send you the link out, and I think that some of you booked on for next week, so we'll see you next week. Thanks everybody.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, have a great day, everybody. Cheers. Bye.